Hello and welcome to another edition of the Rollin Illini. I am Joshua Joynes, joined as always by Avery Schaefer and Miles Hill. Once again, the Illini Drive is the able-bodied sports show and it runs Monday through Thursday. Friday, we bring you something a little bit different, which is an adaptive sports show called Rollin Illini. And we are so glad to have you from 6 to 7 p.m., whether you are listening on WPGU in your car or on the WPGU 107.1 app that just released, whether you're driving to Hilton Head or you're in the range. We're so glad to have you on the show. A lot happened this week, so we'll get to it. But first, boys, how are you guys doing?
I've had quite the week, to say the least. Capped off by a brownie extravaganza that went, shall we say, a little bit awry.
I know we're going to hear about that later in your last big thing.
Yes.
Awesome. We can't wait to hear it. Miles, how are you doing?
My week was sensational, Josh.
Sensational?
Sensational. Looking great. It's a great way to keep going with the school year, man.
Miles and I are both a little tired. It was a good week in the gym for the athletes.
Yeah.
So we're going to get right to it. Today on the Illinois Wheelchair Basketball Facebook page, they released the schedule for both the men and women's teams, where they'll be going for tournaments, and where they'll be going for tournaments. So we'll start with the men's team. The men's team and the women's team will both begin their season at a friendly in Chicago on November 7th and 8th. That's a Saturday and Sunday, which is rare for the teams because usually we play Friday, Saturday. So it's a Saturday-Sunday tournament against adult teams. Just kind of a friendly, will not count for anything. Then they'll get a week off, and the only tournament of fall semester will be November 22nd and 23rd at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. It'll be the first college games for both teams. Miles, are you excited about that? What do you think about that first tournament?
Oh, man, I'm excited to start playing some basketball, first of all, man. It's all the scrimmaging, the team that we have. It's so deep. Both teams, exactly. The scrimmages between both teams that we've been kind of doing throughout the preseason with some of the women and without some of the women. Man, it's just been crazy, man. Just the skill that we have on both sides of both teams, man. It's crazy. So I'm looking forward to all the basketball that we play preseason. Chicago, that doesn't count. Even Whitewater, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Now, going into your sophomore campaign, what are some personal expectations for you?
Honestly, I'm looking less into the personal expectations and more what we have as a team, because this team, sky's the limit for us this year. And last year, I like to talk about it a lot. It was natty season for us, but that was a really more of a stretch, something that I wanted us to achieve, but I didn't necessarily think that was necessarily in our wheelhouse. But this year, it's really natty season. We got to put it together, make it work, and I think this team has both women and men have something special to prove this year.
I mean, you can feel it. There's a different energy in the lifting gym and in the basketball court every morning when we go to practice. The women got a couple of really great recruits. One of them is a grad student from Canada who's dropped 28 points on Team USA to win the gold medal and was the most valuable player in the gold medal game at Parapans, which was a great get for the Illini women.
Yeah.
It would not surprise me in the least if both the Illinois men and women ended up bringing back a national championship from Wichita in March, for sure. There's just a different energy about it. Last year, I think natty season was kind of used more as a goal-reaching thing, like kind of a funny thing. But this year, there's a seriousness about it that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So then next on the schedule, that's it for fall semester. Fall semester is pretty light for traveling.
Which is nice.
Then we'll come back for 2 practices a day from January 5th through the 16th, and then both the men's and women's team will take a trip to Omaha, Nebraska, the University of Nebraska Omaha to play a couple games. It used to be a Wichita tournament, but now it's UNO. Then this is where the first split in the schedule is. January 31st through February 1st, the men will go to Missouri to go face the Tigers, our able-bodied basketball rivals. And then the women will go to the Big Cheese Classic in Wisconsin, hosted by the Wassa Bucks. January
I
31st
love
through
that
1st.
name.
Yeah, the Big Cheese Classic. So that'll be cool for them. Then this is the most important thing. If you are listening to it in the Champaign area right now, pull out your calendars, pull out your phones. I don't care if you're driving. Do it.
Whoa. Well, we don't condone.
Yeah, we don't
Texas
condone
driving.
that. Never mind.
But,
when you get to a stopping
yeah.
point, February 14th and 15th will be our home tournament this year, hosted at the Arc.
Yeah.
We need you guys to be loud. We need you guys to be wild. We'll talk about it a lot leading up to it.
Yes,
February
sir.
14th and 15th is the only opportunity we'll be at home this year, so
Yeah.
get out there and see it. Then we'll take a trip to Edinburgh, February 28th and 29th. A trip to the South, my homeland, and Miles' homeland.
Yes, sir.
We'll be going to Alabama March 6th and 7th as a warm-up for Nationals, which will be on Wichita March 18th to 21st. All of these games will be live streamed, or the vast majority of them will be live streamed on the Illinois Wheelchair Basketball Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
So you can watch it there. You might even catch Miles and I calling a few of the women's games.
Oh yeah.
And then you can watch us play in the men's games. So that'll be really, really exciting. Just something to keep you guys updated on. The hashtag for women is our year, and the men have unfinished business.
We got some unfinished business.
If you want to keep up with the Illinois Wheelchair Basketball team more than we talk about, follow them on Facebook. We'll be right back after this quick break, but first we want to remind you that Rolling Illini is brought to you by the University of Illinois Division of Intercollegiate Athletics and FightingIllini.com. I'm going to talk about it because this is what I'm going to. There's a soccer game tonight. Northwestern is in town, our private school rivals, I guess, from the north. In a beautiful new facility. The soccer team is playing their second game in their new field. I'm really excited to get to go see it. Their soccer team is really, really good this year. Got to see it. It's free. It starts at 7 p.m., so if you're in the Champaign area, get out there. Go watch it. And then tomorrow's what we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Students, there are zero reasons that you will not be at that Nebraska game tomorrow at 7 p.m.
Absolutely.
The
I
tickets are free for
I
students.
will be there. We all will be there.
It's going to be exciting.
If you want autographs from us, pictures, just tell us something about the show that you like, that you don't like. We don't care, but get yourself out there and support your Illini.
Yeah, first Big Ten game. Okay,
Yeah.
so Miles and I are both from the South, where college football is like a second religion. So this is the first time that Memorial Stadium is going to be lit, going to be like an SEC type environment.
Legit.
I'm excited for it.
I'm gonna be there.
We're going to be there, so
Have
we're
to be
excited
there.
about that. And then, of course, you can still buy season tickets on FightingIllini.com. Get all your tickets there. Actually helping Miles get his ticket after the game.
Exactly.
FightingIllini.com.
After the show, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Unify, develop,
Glad to
inspire,
do
achieve. That's the University of Illinois Division of Intercollegiate Athletics. We'll be right back after this break. Hello and welcome back to Rolling Illini on WPGU 107.1. We've got some news, and it involves something that we talk about a lot on this show, and it's funding in Paralympic sporting. The city company, the big bank, just released their Paralympic athletes that they're sponsoring this year. And it's a really wide group. It's 40 athletes, which is a very large number from 12 countries, I believe, including 4 Americans. Some of the Americans, people who are familiar with the Paralympic movement, I know about, like Brad Snyder, who was the veteran whose first Paralympics were the 2016 games. He got severely injured and became blind after an IED exploded in Afghanistan. A veteran. Scout Bassett, I also believe, is a veteran, but has its first Paralympics. And then Trayvon Jennifer, the people in the wheelchair basketball world know about. He has 2 medals, 1 gold and 1 bronze in the Paralympics, and then Nikki Knives from sitting volleyball. But Miles, I really wanted to bring up this, not because of who was on the team, but just talking about why it's so important for those Paralympic athletes to be sponsored, maybe even more so than Olympic athletes.
Well, I think the big thing about it is one about the amount of revenue that comes from disabled athletics, and that it's not nearly as high as it would be from able-bodied athletics for any of our sports. So, even wheelchair basketball, which I would probably say is one of the most watched outside of maybe adapted track for Paralympic athletes. But in terms of that, it's important to get our sponsorships because one, everything in terms of cost is higher. The equipment that we have to use, just everything that we have to put in to be able to get to the court or to the field or to do whatever athletics we want to do, whether it's a sitting frame for shot put, a track chair for track or a basketball chair. And that just as a start to be a sponsor is one helps. It helps you, allows you to get there, but also it helps you continue to play the sport and have ways to train and get to that level. And having a sponsor really helps you be able to stay. I know some athletes are trying to stay in Colorado and get working at the Colorado Springs training site, but it's not necessarily easy when you're playing wheelchair basketball or any other sport because the pay is just not nearly what it would be if you're playing basketball or you're playing even golf, baseball, all these types of sports that just make so much money and are able to support themselves and be able to continue that athletic training. So the sponsorships are really important, and that's really big to hear from Citibank that not only for Americans, but 40 athletes across 12 countries, that's really, really big. So
To put that in a little bit of perspective, 40% of the able-bodied athletic revenue here at the University of Illinois comes from college football alone.
Sorry, I want to correct something. I got the number of countries wrong. It's 20 countries and territories. 2 city members are veterans, one from the United States and one from Australia. It's 22 women, 19 men, and they have 85 Paralympic game appearances and won 93 medals already as a group.
Yeah.
So,
It's huge. I think one of the things that's kind of interesting, and this goes back to our conversation that we had last year, and for those of you that missed it, Paralympic medal athletes will finally get paid the same amount as Olympic athletes at World Championships and also Olympic and Paralympic Games, as they should be. But one of the big things that came out when you followed Paralympic athletes on social media who have won medals is how big that was in allowing them to continue their training. We talk about this, and my parents and I joke about this all the time, is like, I cannot be a college level athlete and also hold down a job.
Yeah.
We have a teammate who's currently doing that, and he's
is.
on very little sleep.
He's
And so, I mean, if you want to be successful in the classroom, which you have to be, and you want to be successful on the court, you can't hold down a job. And that goes up to a whole nother level when you are trying to reach a Paralympic level, right? Because there's a lot of good players at the college levels.
Great athletes.
But when you're going at the Paralympic level, you're going for greatness, and every opportunity you have to be in the gym, you need to be in the gym. And by having a job, it just takes away from that. Another job takes away from that.
Right.
Being an athlete is your whole job.
There's success, and then there is Paralympic success.
Yeah, exactly. Like there in my time are going to be about 50 athletes who play in college, probably 60.
Yeah.
In that time, there will be 15 who might make a national team.
Not to mention the demands that are put on all of us as students, aside from all of our athletic or radio endeavors, in my case. I'll tell you, I prepare during the week for this 1 hour, probably 7 hours.
Yeah.
Sitting by my computer, simply surfing through things to talk about. Not a lot of people realize that it is a full-time job to run a show like this.
Yep.
And that on top of being a student, it's a lot. And having a social life too, which you need, that is a lot.
What's a social life? Asking for a friend. Yeah, it's just, I mean, the level, like, at that level, it's got to be your job. And so companies like Citi and Toyota's really stepping up with Tatiana McFadden and just all around. It's really cool to see all those companies stepping up to fill a void that's been there and allowing United States athletes, but also athletes around the world in Citibank's situation to compete at the highest level and to focus their training. So that is awesome.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to bring up, and we're just going to switch gears here, is last week 16 of us on the team had the opportunity to go to Purdue University.
Oh, yeah.
Or Purdon't, as we call it on this campus.
Yes.
For an event run by a women's basketball player named Leonie. She's from Montreal, Canada, but plays on their women's basketball team. And met one of our alumni, Shelby Gruss, and they ran an event called Wheel Rise, WHEEL Rise, in which they showcased wheelchair basketball, and it was a fundraiser for the Challenge Athletes Fund, or CAF.
Yeah.
It was really, really neat to hear Leona talk about, so the way she met Shelby is she saw Shelby, and people know Shelby around campus because Shelby has been on Team USA, on the women's national team, multiple times, and actually got on her bike and chased her down. Had never met her before, and they kind of built a friendship to create this event.
Wow.
And it was awesome. It was before the TCU Purdue football game, so it was a big environment, and then we played at their volleyball arena.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I would have went.
Yeah, it was
2020. I wish I would have went.
It was awesome.
I wish I would have gone.
Yeah, you're right.
I believe is
You're correct.
the
Yeah, it was.
grammar you're looking for.
It was awesome though to see that, and then also one of the cool things is that the athletes got to do afterwards is it was a partnership with their engineering department, and so there was a guy named Corey there and their dean of their engineering school, and they were talking about how to improve wheelchairs, but there were also other things that they wanted their engineering students to solve. One of their big pushes at Purdue in their engineering is solving real world problems. So one of the things they brought up that I found really interesting, as I'm going to go skiing in December and January, and people with disabilities sometimes don't have the circulation in their blood, and it can cause frostbite to happen quicker. And so one of the things that their students are currently working on is a device that it's like a sleeve that you'd put on that would regulate body temperature to be the same at all times, which would then have implications beyond people with disabilities, and just how a conversation with somebody with a disability brought that up.
Wow.
Is really, really cool. And
like a copper fit? A copper fit sleeve?
kind of more like high tech than a copper fit sleeve. A copper fit sleeve, I don't think it would do well in snow. It's something that would be all terrain and make sure that the circulation's still going. Because I'll say Shelby told Corey that she didn't think that she could do snow activities for as long as she wanted to because of the chance of hypothermia and the lack of feeling. So I thought it was a really cool event put on.
Yeah.
I think you can still donate to CAF through the Wheel Rise event. It's something that they're hoping to do in the future.
Yeah.
It's something I really wanted to bring up because it was an event that turned out to be fantastic and meaningful.
Yeah.
I'm glad we went, and I'm glad we're partnering with other Big Ten universities to bring adaptive athletics and real-world applications to things. So just wanted to bring that up. We're going to take one more break, and we'll be right back with Avery and his one big thing. So stay with me. Hello and welcome back to Rollin Illini on WPGU 107.1. Whether you're listening on the radio or on the brand new app that you should definitely download, we are so glad that you are joining us. We've talked a lot about on the show about city athletes and about the Paralympics and about the wheelchair basketball schedule. But this year we're shifting, and one of our last segments in every show is going to be talking about disability and the aspects away from sports. And we've kind of given this responsibility to Avery. So, Avery, go ahead and explain what your story of the week is, because we haven't heard it yet, which is kind of cool.
Well, my story of the week actually just occurred to me on the way here. So, I was making a surprise batch of brownies.
Wait, a surprise batch of brownies. What does that mean?
That is not a surprise anymore, because I'm about to talk about it. But I was making a surprise batch of brownies for my roommate and fellow co-host on the show, Zane Bando. It is his 20th birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday, Zane.
Happy birthday, Zane, bro. You a goat.
So I figured that I would surprise him, but if he's listening right now, it's not a surprise anymore. But anyway, the process of making it, or not making it as the case turned out, highlighted something to me that I've never really thought about before. And I'm curious what you guys think.
Okay.
But by virtue of having disabilities, at least for me, I find that I don't have as much of street smarts as your average person.
What do you mean by that?
Highlighted by the fact that when the recipe said vanilla extract.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I bought vanilla icing.
Fumble the bag, Avery.
Instead, so, and when it said cocoa powder, I bought Swiss Miss.
Oh no.
Is this just go down to the fact that you have never cooked before?
Is this a serious big thing? Is this going into the struggle of disability? Tell us more.
No.
Is this the sheltered life?
It's a funny story, but to me, it highlights what has been, at least for me, a struggle in college over my first 3 years. Gaining those life experiences that would give you common sense. So, I was wondering, have you guys had those experiences where you're like, my disability robbed me of something that other people would find obvious?
So I think it depends on the thing, right? And so my question comes back to you, right? Is like, did your parents growing up do all of the same stuff for you, so you didn't have the opportunity to learn how to do those things?
Correct, and that is my point.
I will give my parents total credit growing up. They did not let that happen. I mean, from the age of 4, my mom made me learn how to do everything medically based by myself because independence is so important. And so, this summer we talked about it a little bit, but the summer I worked at a summer camp for kids with physical disabilities, and spina bifida was one of them, amputees was one of them. Yeah. And one of the things that I thought was really important about summer camp for me growing up and also coming back as a counselor and then an intern is that the idea of I think people with disabilities are pushed less by people in authoritative powers, whether that be your parents or your teachers or your peers. And so it creates this thing called learned helplessness is what we called it.
Exactly.
And my parents did a good job of doing that. But I think summer camp is so important for people with disabilities because it teaches you independence and being away from your parents. Yes. I'll give a great example. In Georgia, there's this thing called Governor's Honors Program. And they call it for the best and brightest in Georgia. For the record, I'm looking right in the camera, and I'm not one of the best or brightest in Georgia at all. But I went there, and it was 4 weeks of overnight, of almost a college-like atmosphere during the summer. Yeah. And it was about 4 hours away from my home. I saw my parents zero times during the 4 weeks. And I think that really showed them that I could go this far away from home. I think that if I didn't think that I had the life skills to learn by myself, I don't think I'd be here. I think I would have been someplace closer to home because my parents are 600 plus miles away and it's a flight away. So I had to learn how to do all those things by myself. So I really think it does depend on the person. Yeah. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree, but I wouldn't say it necessarily has to do with the person. I think it rather has to do with what, Josh, you were talking about in terms of the learned helplessness. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of times you see this, especially growing up when I played youth wheelchair basketball, and it's not to call anybody out that I've ever played with, so I won't say any names at all. But the point is that you see a lot, especially growing up, when you see really young players, prep players, that are just kind of like, they tend to gravitate towards their parents. And you see this even in settings where you're supposed to be, with your team. So we're saying, in a timeout, I've seen a lot of times that you come into a timeout, and instead of coming to the coach, talking to the coach, you're gravitating towards the people who have helped you do kind of everything.
Your parents.
Your life, and that is your parents. So, if they're watching from the sideline, which, of course, we see a lot in wheelchair basketball, you see a lot of support, because it's not like a 9-year-old with a disability found their way to the gym by themselves. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, your parents are coming to watch and support, but at the same time, I always recognized that, and I understood that translated also throughout life. So, I would say what Josh had to say. One, shout out to my parents, especially my dad, because they really pushed me to do everything on my own. And it did take me a while to learn through all that stuff, and I can't cook at all now. Don't get me wrong, I would have known what the vanilla extract and the cocoa powder was, but I don't know if I would have been able to make the brownies because I just can't cook, and that has nothing to do with my inability to understand. I'm just not a good cook. But I think the biggest thing is that it does, after a while, you have to learn the independence, and however that may manifest for you, it does sometimes depend on how your parents or had an upbringing, or any influential person in your life. Yeah. I think my youth coach helped me out with that a lot as well. Because I used to go on tournaments, and my parents, of course, or not, of course, but they couldn't necessarily come with me on tournaments. So I'd go 12, 13 years old, and I'm out for a weekend by myself, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to learn quick what to do because I don't know how to do it. Then ain't nobody doing it for me. You know what I'm saying?
So my message to parents of people with disabilities here is push them to do what they can on their own.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's not saying that they can do everything by themselves.
Right.
It depends on your level of disability.
Right.
I mean, Miles and I are really lucky that we're pretty high functioning.
Yeah.
And so we can do a lot of those things. But that doesn't necessarily, but that means that you have to at least make them try.
Right.
Right? Make them try.
Exactly.
I want to go back to that thing because the thing I respect the most is the programs, the high school programs and the AAU type programs that you were talking about, that their coaches are the only like authoritative power. Like they don't let the parents get involved. And I think there's a lot of value in that because a lot of parents want to be involved in everything. Right. And by learning that, hey, you can't always lean on your parents, like you like going and talking to your juniors coach. That was a you thing. Right. And that prepared me for college when I have to go talk to our coach. Right. That's my job. My parents wouldn't dream of getting involved in something between the coaching staff and I. Yeah. Just wouldn't happen. And so I think that's kind of an upbringing thing and a learning thing. But I do kind of have a cooking story that's very similar, and I don't want to blame it on my disability, but sometimes multitasking can be difficult because of it. So I will give a shout out to my roommate Gabe, who's been on the show before. We have an apartment together this year. He does the vast majority of the cooking. What I do is I strain the noodles sometimes, so I pour the water in. But that's because I have more balance than he does. That's literally it. So he was out, and so I wanted to make myself, I think, some crab ragoons in the oven. So I put them in the oven. I heated it all the way up. It took forever for the oven to get to 425 degrees. I put them in, pulled them out, no problem. Boom. Great. So we ate them. The next morning, Gabe and I wake up and we go, what's that smell? It was the oven that was still on that I forgot to turn off the night before. Oh, no. So, yeah. Oh. If there's a heating over bill for the month, that's going to be on me.
Yeah, that one's all on you, dog.
But that was kind of my funny whoopsie of the week, and it was kind of similar. Yeah. When I was in the 7th grade, so like, you know how you have a glove? This is why I don't cook, by the way. We're getting into the segment called "This is Why Josh Doesn't Cook."
I think, honestly, this segment is why all three of us don't cook. Because I don't cook, and you clearly didn't know what a middle extract was.
So my parents have a full-length glove. Yeah. So I put we were making tacos, hard shell tacos, because my mom, I didn't want to make tacos. I was in a bad mood at the time. Didn't want to cook. And so I put them in, and then they cooked, and they were ready. So I opened up the oven with my gloved hand, reached in and grabbed the tacos with my ungloved hands, and burned myself really, really bad. And then I didn't cook again for another 5 years. So yeah.
Oh man.
That's once again not disability based. That's called me just being dumb.
Yeah. The tacos cooked you. You 100%. Them.
Did not hold on to the tacos very long. All over the floor. I'm pretty sure my dogs ate it. It's fine. So yeah, that is that's my story. Yeah. Do you have any cooking stories?
This is not even cooking. This is how you just knew. I guess this kind of goes into the story of it. Growing up, I never made anything in the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? So there were a couple people who were allowed in the kitchen. My mom, my dad, of course. They're the ones that cook. My brothers, they can make small stuff. They were allowed to make some small stuff. Miles, though, you didn't let Miles in the kitchen. And so one time,
Miles was miles away.
Yeah, miles away upstairs, away from the kitchen, waiting for something to be made for him. So each week, someone had to make the Kool-Aid. All right, look. This might be the stereotypical black person story here, but dang it, we had to drink some Kool-Aid. Someone had to make it, right?
What flavor?
It was fruit punch flavor, but it didn't taste anything like fruit punch when I was done making. That's for certain. And so what happened was Martin and Marcus, my twin brother Martin and my young brother Marcus, they had been taking turns each week making the Kool-Aid, and we had the pre-made like powder. So all you had to do was just get the water and put the powder in. That was it. You didn't have to mix the sugar with the powder in the water. None of that. It was just take the powder, put it in the water. Well, my the pre-made package already, it says put 16 scoops into a gallon of water. And so of course, my brothers, they've been making it for a couple weeks. They decided they weren't going to keep making 16 scoops, so they found the equivalent of the 16 scoops and put a 1-cup scoop in there.
Oh no!
And just was like, this is it. You take 1-cup scoop, you put it in the gallon, you'll be good. So they didn't want to tell me this when it finally became Miles' one chance to get into the kitchen and start making some Kool-Aid. So I took 16 1-cup scoops, put them into the gallon, and let me tell you, if you thought Kool-Aid was diabetes already, oh boy, this Kool-Aid was no joke. I mean, it was just like,
don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, no, you do not want to drink this Kool-Aid. Matter of fact, you could take the cup, about a 12-ounce cup, fill it 8 ounce full, and then pour another ounce of what I had, and it would taste like regular Kool-Aid. And that's how much I put in there. And then I was banned from making Kool-Aid again.
You're
but
banned
you know
from
what?
the kitchen.
Honestly, I guess I kind of won, because then I just had the Kool-Aid made for me.
That was kind of the taco story. I think I won in that story because I was not invited back in the kitchen.
That's what I'm saying. I lost in the moment. But in hindsight, I kind of won. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it. So, oh, man.
Take the W.
I'll take the dubs. But, yeah, no, I think, Avery, to your point, I do agree that a lot of, I wouldn't say necessarily common sense, but it does happen a lot with learning helplessness, and what Josh's point is, and that is a really big thing. I think summer programs like, I know something we have back home, Camp Crazy Legs is something, but also even Victory Junction type camps, just things like that that'll bring you in and put you in a group with people who understand. And I think that's the biggest thing is that, like, I understand. I knew growing up that I had to do these things, but I always felt it was unfair that no one else had to do them as well. And so, of course, that was irrational. Like, I can't expect everybody to have a disability because I have one. But at the same time, as a young, naive person, that's the way I felt. And so I think the biggest thing is that we have to learn to do these things on our own, be able to do things. And, of course, you can't send a 9-year-old to the supermarket and tell them to go get brownie stuff. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I agree. I think that more importantly that all this stuff taken into account, you have to eventually become independent on your own. And I think that's one big thing for people with disabilities outside of having their disability is learning independence.
Yeah, until the day I die, I will be a fan of summer camps.
Yeah.
I mean, I started going to summer camps when I was like 8 years old. Victory Junction was the first one I went to.
Right.
Then I found one in Georgia, and it was just for kids with spina bifida, and we created kind of a fraternity type thing.
Yeah.
And the whole point of it was actually, to your point, was watching the older kids do things and going, I can also do that.
Right.
Even if I wasn't taught at home that I could do that, I knew that I could do that. And then the other thing is, like, there's other people out there like you, right? And if somebody does something and they're like you and there's no excuse for you not to do it, then you're going to want to do it too.
You're going to want to do it.
And so it's that the whole group setting, but also getting rid of that learned helplessness 1 week at a time every year.
But also, I would warn those people who want to do things, be realistic.
Yeah. But the only, like, I wouldn't even say be realistic, right? Like, you don't know what's realistic until you try it, right?
Yeah.
So if you're beginning the conversation with be realistic, you're limiting yourself in a way that you probably shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yes.
I understand that. I mean, to an
Correct.
extent, be realistic to your disability. I mean, don't expect that you're going to be able to start juggling the first time you do it.
You can accept that you can't do something, but you can't accept that you can't do something unless you've tried it.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
making brownies.
Exactly.
Yeah. Avery can't make brownies.
And Avery can't make brownies.
The slightly less serious moral to this story is that I clearly can't make brownies.
Yeah, the Rolling Illini party will not have brownies, tacos, or Kool-Aid.
I think it exclusively should have those things.
Oh, man.
All right. We just want to remind you guys before we wrap up the show here that Andrew Scalera with UPTV is here at Urbana Public Television. And if you enjoyed the show or want to see our pretty faces, watch it Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. on UPTV. I watched it last week. It also goes up on YouTube, and we share it on our Facebook page, which you should follow, Rolling Illini, on Facebook. We post up periodically there. Last week I posted the article Miles talked about. It's a great article. You should read it from his friend back home.
Yes, sir.
What else do we have? Is that it?
I think that's it. Avery,
you got anything?
It's a quality brownie.
Nope.
All right, then we're going to talk about next week. Next week on the show, Gabe Denbraber is going to be joining us, my roommate, and we're going to be talking about a new facility that we are trying to build for adaptive athletics in the program. We're going to have interviews with the people at the top of the program. for that and the push to kind of fundraise for that building. You're not going to want to miss it. And then, of course, Avery's big thing. We'll see what that is next week.
Yep.
So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week here on the Rolling Illini on WPGU 107.1. Thank you all.